recording. So welcome everyone to Climate Change from Learning to Actions coaching session, which is basically more focused on bringing us different people that are doing amazing work in their communities that are promoting climate change. And today we are privileged to have Pauline, who will be taking us through what she does. She's, like I stated before, she's a mom and she's a businesswoman. So this is something that is actually going to inspire young ladies to actually even challenge ourselves that in as much as, yes, we can have careers and the like, we can also be able to manage both our careers and our families. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I don't know, Pauline, is it okay if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the team and what you do? Yeah.
Okay. First of all, this is not a video call, is it?
It's actually a video call.
Oh, I can't see. Well, I can't see a lot of people videos.
No, actually, for the person presenting, we allow them to switch on the video so we can see them.
Okay, let me just turn on my video.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm at a farm, and give me 1 minute. Let me try and turn on the other mic. So we can just like that.
All right.
Is that better?
Yes, very much better.
Just a minute. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I forgot to turn on the other light because I was trying to keep the boys away from everybody and from my space. So thank you so much for the introduction. That was quite huge. I'm honored. So my name is Pauline Lusale Kalunga, but I prefer to be called Pauline LK for one funny reason. I'm a girl who believes in girl power. And mostly when I'm introducing myself to people, I don't want people to know me by my surname, rather by my name and my character, which is me just trying to be a girl that can do anything she puts her mind to. So I'm a beauty therapist and an IT project manager by profession. I went to college and I started out as a beauty enthusiast because I was always fascinated by natural beauty and just being a natural person because I'm a dark skin tone person. And at some point I knew I could attain good skin without the need for me to bleach it. So that was the approach I took when I was just a teenager. So because many parents in Africa, unfortunately, don't believe that your dreams are something you can live on, I respected my mother's concern when it comes to choosing a career. So I went on to do project management. I started doing that with the University of Zambia, but I must age you stay in school. Don't follow my path. I dropped out. Not really dropping out, but I wrote to the dean to say, I would love to suspend my learning here and take a different route because I realized that me going to do project management at UNZA was not something I did because I was looking for a job. Rather, I wanted to learn how to better manage my business because from a younger age, I decided I think entrepreneurship is something I'm going to do. So I paused my study with the University of Zambia and I picked it up with the University of California online studies. And then I made it into IT, data analysis, because it's something that I'm always fascinated with. And along the way, I still picked up my love for beauty therapy and I sponsored myself because I knew if I told my mom to say, sponsor me to do beauty therapy, she just didn't see the picture in there. So I went on to do beauty therapy and also while studying beauty therapy, I started learning and just being introduced to a whole lot of drama going on in the beauty industry, including the pharmaceutical industry. It's at that point that I decided, I think for me, I'm going to take the organic, natural approach. And at the time, I was dating my husband. We eventually got married and we moved to the farm. So I've been living on a farm for 5 years and I've been raising my children here, but that doesn't stop me from living a normal life like everybody. I still get to do work, and I still get to work remotely while balancing my personal growth, raising the boys, and also running a business. I know that was too much of an intro, but I think I'm gonna pause here so that other people can come in as well. Judith,
Okay.
back to you.
Yes. So unfortunately for this show, it is all about you. So since we have actually gotten a bit to know about you, but you are free to actually interact with us and know who else is in the room. I feel like then we can jump on board, which is today's main objective, to talk about what you do in relation to climate change. Yes, what you are doing in the community and how we can actually be inspired and how you can actually challenge us to either join you or come up with our own initiative in our communities. Yeah.
Okay, great. So when I started out in the corporate world, I first got a job with Airtel customer service. I was a customer service associate on the data desk. While there, I initially went into that job because I wanted to just get a little bit of experience, especially in relation to customer service, because I knew that definitely someday I actually put a target on myself to say when I turn 30 years, whatever happens, wherever I'll be married or not, I want to be an entrepreneur. So then I was 19 years and I told myself, I am going to give myself 10 years of learning, whatever I can get, whichever company I would work for, I'm willing to go. So then I just had a certificate in ICT. And I remember taking my application to Airtel and people were like, this girl is crazy. and one problem about me is I have that self-confidence in saying, look, I mean, if Jesus walked on this earth and did his Father's will, I believe I can also do anything through Christ who strengthens me. So I took my application to Airtel and I told them I want to work as an intern in this company because I want to get experience in customer service and just custom analysis. So they employed me as an intern, and after 6 months, they noticed that I was actually meeting targets even more than some people that had worked there, and some people were even qualified, like degree holders and all. So I remember this one time the supervisor asking me to say, we understand that you're a teenager. Then I was 19 or 20. But then if you are willing, we could employ you since you're going to be turning 20 like in 3 months time. But then if we employ you, you can sign a 1-year contract. And then once you are 21 years, then you can then work with us and you can then register for NAFTA. So I gladly took the job on because it's something that I was actually enjoying. I got to understand, I got to be exposed to systems and also just try and understand customer analysis, marketing, and just how systems were working. So I took that job and I ended up working for Airtel for 4 years. But when I was 22, while I was working for Airtel, I told myself I need to start registering my business and start digging deeper into how I can just run my business. Then I, with the help of my boyfriend who's now my husband, who knew, said this girl is crazy about entrepreneurship. He helped me to get started on how to register my brand. Then I registered my business, which was called Naturalicious. Just from the term itself, it was something to say I want to do research on natural products and natural ways of doing things, especially the agricultural aspect. I registered my business and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from that point, but I hadn't gathered real on the ground experience. So when I was 23, it reached a time where I now needed to renew my contract. So I decided not to renew my contract. And then after that, I actually got engaged to my husband now. And because initially he was from Kawe, where I also grew up, but then at the time I was in Lusaka. So we had been talking to say, would love to settle on a farm. And for him, he was already practicing agriculture. He had bought a piece of land in Chivombo. So that's how, when I got engaged to him, I knew my life was going to be at the farm. And I was excited about it because I love to experiment, which is what makes my relationship with Judith very special because many times I keep texting her, okay, I'm thinking of this. What do you think? What do you think would be the chemical analysis of this? Do you think I'll be making a bomb and stuff like that? So I was excited about being married to my husband. And once we got married, which was now in 2016, we wanted to move straight away, move to the farm. But our parents were like, yo, look, she's from Lusaka, she's young, you're both young. And then at the time I was now 24. But maybe you need to hold up a little bit. Maybe you need to stay in town for a bit. So we hung around in town. And by the way, both our parents from both sides are not farmers. They're not into agriculture, but they're like town people who have corporate jobs and live a corporate life. So when we 3 months that we got married, we're like, okay, look, I think town life is not working. We really need to move. So we eventually moved to the farm in February of 2017. When we moved here, it was a very interesting situation because farming where you actually practice and where you see from afar is very different, especially agriculture as a sector itself. So we moved here, we found that the soil was badly damaged. There was a lot of deforestation happening. Actually, even in the farm, the piece of land that we live on, we had initially had a caretaker who was taking care of it for almost a year. But found that he had cut a lot of trees and he was burning charcoal right inside the farm. And that was the biggest challenge we had because then we had to start figuring out what we could plant on the land. And even when we tried planting, we would notice that we would not get good yield. Only until when we started calling in agronomists to come and advise us. And most of the time, the advice would get would be use different kind of chemicals to try and restore the land. But we knew that is not the approach we wanted. And we wanted to try and do things organically, especially looking at it from a long-term view and also for the good of the environment. So through our research, we made a friend who was connected to an organization called SNV. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. So SNV works with the local farmers and people doing agriculture in trying to find organic ways of creating or rather growing a produce. So they introduced us to a system called a biodigester or bio manure. I don't know if you guys have heard of that as well. So it's like a new concept which not many people are practicing, but I think few people are actually getting to know about it. So we were taught about it and we were very excited because out of that, we started doing research and learned that we could actually be able to have gas for cooking, which would be organic and produce less fumes and less fossil. And secondly, we would have fertilizer, which can actually help us to actually restore the nutrients in the soil while at the same time grow our produce. I was excited on both sides because then I knew I wouldn't have to spend my night cooking outside in the dark, but I'd actually cook in the house with clean green energy. At the same time, it would not cause too much fumes, and it would also be safe for my children as well. So we went ahead and invested into doing that, and it started working well after having some patients, which actually was somewhere in 2019. And prior to that, the other thing that we also I decided to major much more in was in tree planting, especially the grafting aspect. I'm always curious when it comes to preserving seeds and kind of doing things the natural way. So I told myself, what if we could actually be able to preserve some of the indigenous seeds that we have? With much more focus on the fruit trees and some organic plants. Something that I've always like two things that I've been doing a lot of research, especially in relation to beauty therapy, because I'm majoring much more in organic skincare formulation, was how to harvest moringa and castor. So somewhere in 2018, I tried to do an outgrow scheme with the local women, but it didn't go very well because I kind of taught them the method on how to grow the castor, and we tried to get a first batch from some women, and then a lot of people now started realizing that actually we could grow imono and make use of it. And the approach I went with them was try and grow it organically, but some people were not being very patient with that. So they started adding fertilizer. So when I harvested that castor and cold pressed it and got the castor oil, once I took it to that, it came out to have fertilizer and pesticides, and which is something I was actually trying to run away from. So I then realized that outgrow scheme with my country people, where you have minimal supervision, wasn't going very well. That is when I told myself to say, you know what, I think I'm just going to grow my own trees. But then when I started venturing into growing my own seeds, I realized, say, actually, this is a very good idea where I could plant nitrogen-rich trees to plant in the farms. And what if I could actually even graft more trees? I then started grafting citrus fruits, a lot of the moringa, and also the avocado trees. I tried to measure into these trees because I was looking at its outcomes. I would get fruit out of that, which would be a good byproduct. That would be good for the soil. And then secondly, it would be a good method of getting my product for formulating my organic skincare. So recently, the biggest we had gone, which was also by incorporating my uncle, was grafting 1,700 avocado trees with different varieties, three main varieties. So we have the Hass, the Puete, and the Pinkerton. This was very huge for me because it's something that we did within one given space of time. And I was feeling very excited because I knew to say once all these trees are planted, I would be assured that at the same time, at one given moment, I would have planted 1,500 trees. So that is how my journey started with the grafting and the growing of trees. And so with time, I realized to say, I don't want to be the only one who does this, really. I started teaching the local women in my area on how to do the same and also how to replicate the same in their farms. So a lot of people in this area mostly are women. And the men that are there are like retired people because a lot of young people don't believe in going in agriculture when they're young. Everybody wants to be in the city. So we are the youngest couple. And many times when many people come to the farm, they suspect us to be caretakers or rather children of the farm owner. So, and many times we play along. We're like, somebody would come and say, is your father home? I'll be like, I know, actually he's in town. Or some people would be like, he's the owner of the farm around. I'll tell them, no, actually the owner of the farm lives in Lusaka. We're just caretakers. But eventually, once they get to know the truth, a lot of people get so shocked that we left the town life, especially having been exposed to a corporate life at a younger age and then just leaving everything for the farm. And the other main reason why I really agreed to come and live on the farm was, in the first place, my husband was very honest with me. He told me my life is really about agriculture and I want to venture into it. And I told him, okay, I want to go into research and just do my own thing. And I tend to love just being in nature because that helps me to detox. I said yes. And then secondly, I wanted to be in my children's life. I grew up in an environment where my mom was present in my life. And I realized that I also want to do the same. I want to be like, some people would maybe think it's a little bit obsessed, but I want to be part of my children's life, especially as they grow. And I knew from the time that I got married that my life is going to be different. So I had to slowly start reminding myself that we're going to be different. We might end up being dirty most of the times, and our life will be different from other people, and that's okay. Though sometimes it can be very lonely because because many of the friends I have and had are still in the corporate world. Sometimes Like you'd be having a conversation on a phone call with a friend and they tell you, oh, I recently got a job, or I recently got a new post, and now I'm not doing stuff like that. And sometimes one of my friends would be like, you should come back. I'm sure you can just put somebody on the farm and come back in time. I tell them, well, it's a good thing, but I don't want to do it. And the fact that each time I work with these amazing women in the community and we get people adapting to organic ways of doing things, it just really lifts my confidence and encourages me to keep at it, and hoping that in future we can do more and a lot of people would adapt to positive ways of being positive ambassadors for good and sustainable living in relation to climate change. So far, this is me. Any questions from anybody so far? Judith, are you there?
Hello, I think I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Your name?
Yeah, by Benjamin Tembo.
Yes, Mr. Tembo. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I've heard you talking about the ideas of biomanure and organic matter,
Yes, please.
which you are using at your farm,
Yes,
and
sir.
the ideas of tree planting.
Yes,
So
please.
my question is, if you look at these ideas of biomanure or organic matter and the issues of planting trees, actually, they are one of the most recommended ways to conserve biodiversity and in terms of climate mitigation. So what I really want to know is, when these ideas were emerging in your thoughts, like coming up with biomanure or organic matter or tree planting, did you really know, or were you conscious that these things were going to be mitigating climate change or maybe conserving biodiversity? Or maybe you're just doing them and in the long run, in the process, then you discover, say, okay, these are measures or things that are recommended for us to conserve biodiversity or to mitigate climate change.
Okay. On the mitigation aspect, yes, I was very aware, which is one way that even that helped me to land at it. Because actually, before we went there, while I was doing the grower scheme, the initial plan for me was to try and have this product to be certified to be organically grown. So once I submitted them with that, they were able to tell some of the chemicals that were found in these oils, especially the castor oil that had been grown. And then they gave me a recommendation to say, if you really want your product to be certified organic, you have to look at certain elements. And on my own part, I tried to do that with the people I was working with, only they were not being as honest as I was in my implementation, which is why I pulled everything back and I told myself, I need to do a research and try to find a method that can enable me to grow my product organically. So while I was doing my research, someone then introduced me to SNV to say, actually, what you're looking for, we know of an organization that can be able to help you attain this product. And then being able to harvest the green organic energy for cooking was a plus for me, because it also made me very excited, as I hated the aspect of cooking with charcoal, because while you're cooking with charcoal, the carbon monoxide is dangerous. Even after cooking, I'd mostly have migraines, and I hated that. I also hated the situation in my farm where the soil was damaged. There's a lot of deforestation. So having known that actually I could land on a situation that made my farming and agriculture better, that's got me excited. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is, out of research, I found it, which just made me very excited. And I am even more excited to tell other people about it and even get more people on board. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Tembo.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No worries. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, my phone, I'm zooming on my phone. I'm unable to get the name. Well, is the Safira, right?
Yes,
Okay, I had to
Safira.
look closer. Yes, I had to look closer. Thanks. Go ahead, Safira.
So, in line with what you do, what has really motivated you in not stopping on what you do? Is it because of the passion, or is it because you are interested in doing it, or what?
Thank you so much, Safira. The what always gives me the motivation is the passion. I've had this from the time I was young. And I started out as an enthusiast, and many times, so when I started out as a beauty enthusiast, I would just have radio talk. So I would go to friends on radio and tell them that I have a burning passion for educating people and encouraging people, especially the darker skin tone people in society, to love their skin and just maintaining it. Because myself, I'm a dark skin person, and I was trying to find a solution for my skin problems because I also have a sensitive skin, and I thought dark skin people don't have a lot of issues with their skin. But once I became a woman, I noticed that certain times in a month I would have acne. And I was like, okay, this acne is really getting in the way. I need to find a natural solution for it. So fast forward to my late teenage years, I would do radio talks and TV shows. And then once I started growing the castor and having to meet all these regulatory requirements, some people started then encouraging me to say, why don't you try and study this so that you can get a paper, not to get a job, but just so it's easy for you to get access to regulatory bodies and also for you to be able to have a copyright on your trademark and your brand as well. So I started out of interest. And the main reason why I don't even want to stop is because I believe there are people out there that would benefit out of me sharing my story, first of all. Secondly, there's a serious problem in my country, which is skin bleaching. And skin bleaching affects everybody, and it comes from a place of loss of confidence, ignorance to what chemicals and products are in our products, and also just lack of wanting to do a research as people. I think people, especially my people as Zambians, with trying to research, may find 95% of us have smartphones, we have iPhones, but what we do is just social media. We don't even take the time to try and look at free resources out there that can make your life better. So I'm glad I actually sponsored myself to study beauty therapy. Because I knew once I tried to introduce the topic with my family, they're like, look, beauty therapy is an expensive course to do, and mostly you don't get certified in our country, but outside. So what I started doing was, while less working, I would always save 10% of my salary every month towards my education, which is something I still do even today. Every month I keep 10% for experiments, for research, even for studies. If I come across short courses that I know would add to what I do or to add just my proficiency, I go ahead and purchase short courses. I pay for people to teach me. I even pay for somebody just to show me how to do something. So it's out of interest, and just when I influence somebody positively, like here in Kabwe, I introduced a campaign in 2018 where I started having where I started having boot camps, and I started noticing that a lot of people started stopped bleaching and started trying to go back to embracing the natural skin. And recently, last year, June, the beginning of 2021, I was struggling with a hormone imbalance, which was due to pregnancy. And so what happened is when I gave birth to my second baby, I my hormones were a little imbalanced, and it affected me greatly to a point that my skin and my hair were so badly damaged. So I decided to shave my head, and it was at a time where I had quite long hair. And at the time I was doing that, I was also running a hair salon, and I was already doing the boot camps. I was able to motivate people. I was able to show people that actually you can actually grow 15 inches long natural hair. You can make it thicker. You can make it fuller. You can have a full hairline. So I now had to have a serious conversation with myself to say, okay, I know you talk about embracing natural skin. You talk about using organic products, and people can see that they work on your skin. What will happen? What if you shave your head and your hair doesn't grow back? But I decided to shave my head anyways because it's something that I think I really needed and I was happy to do. So once I shaved my head, I then realized that there were a lot of other women who had been battling self-confidence issues because they were scared of shaving their heads, that people would think weird or just wrong. And because everybody, like a lot of people today think looking nice is when you have a weave on, but there's nothing wrong with having a wig on though. But some people have reached the point of knowing so much about extensions and little about their hairs. So once I shaved my long hair, I had a lot of women on up to say, you know what? I mean, it's just hair. Even I've been wanting to research, I've been wanting to shave my head, but I'm so scared. But it then just gave me a new client that I never even knew actually existed. And once I shaved my hair started sprouting back again, even thicker and fuller. And I was excited to get complimented to say, wow, you shaved your head and it's growing back and it's still maintaining. And once I now started seeing, so far I've had 15 women shave their heads after I shaved my head. Some of them had bad alopecia, and we started looking at organic and natural products to use. I'd recommend some products that use them. Each time I see those women's hair sprouting, it just makes, it fills my heart. And I keep saying, Jesus, my work is done. Like I feel so happy. I hope that answers your question, Safira.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions, concerns, additions, divisions? Anybody? Oh, okay. Judith. Any questions so
Hello,
far?
guys. If you have any other question, please feel free to just unmute your mic, then ask the question to our presenter. So she's asking if anyone has got questions or maybe contributions. Please, let's feel free to interact.
I can turn the light off in here. Hello?
Okay, I think they don't have questions.
Okay.
So I think you can just go on with the presentation.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask that in the next 10 minutes, I may leave because my battery is running quite low, and I have a limitation with my backup supply. I had a bit of issues today with my electricity, but I'm hoping everything can be sorted by tomorrow. So a lot of relation to climate change and what I am much more focusing on, especially with my future plans. So my husband is trying to go much more further with the organic fertilizer and the green energy production. And so each time we harvest something, so he's created a chain where he's trying to teach and introduce a lot of farmers, those in our area and also our friends, because I mean, charity begins at home. So we're starting with our friends. So we are trying to teach them on the importance of going green. And also the other thing that we are doing is we are actively incorporating people that have cows, have goats, have pigs, and animals in our area by off-taking the cow manure. So once we get that cow manure, we pour it in the digester. And once the microorganisms feed on that, we get two byproducts from there. We get the biogas, which we use for cooking, which can also be used for many things. So instead of, so biogas is the same as LPG gas, the one that we use for cooking, but the one that we actually buy from a gas station, if you guys are familiar with that. The difference is that with biogas, it's natural, it's organic, it's green, it's safe, and it's biodegradable, meaning it's much more better than the LPG processed gas from petroleum or diesel. So we, at least in that area, we have created, I would say, employment of some sort to the cow owners and cow headers, because a lot of young people now, they know my husband approaching with the drums and the canter, then they know they're going to get at least enough money to buy some cooking oil to aid them to help them in some ways. It's not a lot, it's bits, but at least it goes, we believe it goes, it brings a difference to somebody's life, especially one who had no use for the manure. Because previously, some people would just let the manure dry and just let it be there. So I've also brought sanity to people's crowds. Like there's this older farmer across the road who lives 10 minutes drive from our farm. He's quite an old man. He's in his late 70s, and all of his children are educated there in town. So he lives at the farm with only him and one disabled grandson. So once I discovered that boy lives with them, we try to introduce them to people that can help him to be in school. And we then told him to say, you don't need to let your cows graze very far, but rather they can just be within, and then we'll be off taking the manure. So from there, we've been working with him for over 7 months, and we're happy that at least there's cleanliness in his farm. He doesn't have a lot of hassle with the cleaning, and that also helps the boys to stay in school, because then it doesn't have a lot of work to do. And on top of that, we give them something which enables them to buy some sugar and cooking oil. And then on my own part, the other thing that I also do is handcrafting. I taught myself how to handcraft, and this craft came about actually out of trying to find a solution for my burnout. So being a data analyst or software developer, it can be very stressful and challenging sometimes, especially when you do not have an office to work from, because many times I actually do work from home. I have because I now run it as a business to help other people in creating in analyzing data or creating software for their businesses. I now get clients who hire me to do certain work for them. Sometimes I work with teams, I work with entrepreneurs, I work with organizations, also with consultants as well. So there are times I started noticing that working from home and being a mother, I would have a kind of stress that would be really, and like I would have burnout, and I needed to find something to do. And I then realized that doing something with my hands actually it helps me a lot. I picked up some skills I'd learned when I was young. Like my grandmother taught me how to use a punch needle when I was 11. And the whole time I never did anything with it. So this one time I told myself, you know what? Let me pick up an old jersey I used to wear when I was pregnant, which was very thick and long. I uncoiled it and I made something out of that. So what I then realized after I did that to say, actually, it kind of helped me to detox and just to get my mind away from the dealing with softwares and all. I then told myself, okay, whenever I'm stressed or I just need to get a change of my mind, I'll do this. I then started teaching young girls in my area how to handcraft something and also how to add value to that, which is something that I was basically trying to do by creating, planting a tree, letting it grow, get the seeds out of that and could press into oil. So far, I've trained over 35 women, and right at the beginning of the court season this year, I tried to re-get my access to the maximum, the Mukobeko maximum prison, the female section, where there are over 96 female inmates there, to work with them on handcrafting. But I had a little bit of limitation because some of the tools needed to be used there were a bit sensitive, and because it's well, they refuse to call it a prison because it's a correctional center. There are some regulations when it comes to using certain tools. So I am still waiting for the commandant to give a better advice on what alternative tools can be used. Then we can pick up and go ahead and do that. But the only thing that I am trying to do with them is trying to teach them on how to be entrepreneurs and self-reliant, especially because there's life after prison. And it's very interesting to just be there and mingle with people, because many times we take our freedom for granted. But being there just reminds me that there's a whole lot of change that goes in people's mind, especially when they're incarcerated, and it messes with your mind a lot, which ends up killing a lot of people's spirits, because a lot of them end up feeling and believing that society hates me, and so what's the point of even doing something with my life? But through having conversations and talks with them, some people now are like, okay, I'm open to learning something and just to be self-sufficient, especially hoping that someday when I'm out of this correction facility, I can do something with my life. So that is that. Any questions, concerns so far from anybody?
Okay, so I'm so sorry. I think I missed most of your presentation because our Wi-Fi keeps tripping today. I don't know why. But then I don't know if anyone has asked has asked this question. You know, you talked of how you are more key onto preserving the natural trees, the indigenous trees. Like, how is that important? And looking at the aspect of promoting climate change, why should we also invest our time in also preserving indigenous trees? Aside from, you know, most of the time we say tree planting, we mostly focus on I think it's these palm trees, pine trees, the ones that are mostly cut
Yeah.
into wood. Why is it important? We should also include in our campaigns the Mukuba trees, these indigenous trees. Why is it so important when we are advocating for climate change that we also plant the indigenous trees?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thanks for asking that, Judith. So, first of all, we are Africans, and when it comes to doing agriculture or planting of trees, we need to understand our climate, which definitely has been affected, and chances of going back to the way life used to be very zero on that part. So when it comes to preserving indigenous trees and seeds as well, it's something that first of all is our culture. It's like we are preserving a part of us as a people to keep for the future, or rather to take to the future. I would be happy to have my grandchildren find crush seeds, moringa seeds, the mukula seed, even the movanga tree seeds. Like I have this one particular tree I kept in the middle of the farm. It's the movanga tree, and it's the only tree that I've seen in the area. So I feel very excited about it because first of all, I'm an African and I'd love future generations to come and take part into a culture that I experience. Secondly, a lot of research can be done and can be found from a lot of these trees. An example is a fig tree. You even a movanga tree itself. You've heard how I don't know if you guys have heard of this, how certain people would get backs of certain trees and boil and steam and like some famous trees that are mostly famous for that is the neem tree. Some people would get backs of it and boil and drink or steam, and they claim it helps them. So I believe when we preserve indigenous seeds and trees, it gives a possibility to do research that helps us find answers and solutions for African people and for people living in Africa itself. Thirdly, it's a source of life and food itself. Organic African food, an example of masuku, impundu, is those trees are mostly found in Africa. And if we don't preserve those kinds of trees, our future generation will never know of such fruits. They'll never know of amakole fruits. They only know of fruits like mandarins and apples. And those, an example of an apple, it's not a Zambian fruit, like it's not an African fruit. Fruits that are Africans, we should try and preserve them because they are also fit for the environment and also for the hot climate itself. Like an example, an apple tree doesn't do very well with the central southern weather like Zambia. A mango tree does very well in Zambia compared to Ireland. So it's very important because it's a source of food, it's a preservation for culture. Also, it can yield the weather, the African weather, better than international exotic weather. Excuse me. But unfortunately, a lot of people in town, especially, one thing I've noticed is they grow trees without an understanding on the properties of a certain tree, but rather on its beauty. Like an example you gave of the pine trees and the palm trees. Everybody, like there's a lot of people in the suburban areas who are planting palm trees, not even understanding what variety of a palm tree that is, what is important is provided, everybody wants to plant that without looking at other potential properties that might be healthy for it. I hope that answers the question, Judith.
Yes, it actually does answer a lot of questions. And you have talked of we plant trees because of beauty. We don't understand the impact that it has. Because I had one friend of mine is an agronomic who was talking of the fact that pine trees, do you know that they can actually drain water systems if you plant them closer to water? And then I'm like, so we do things out of ignorance, and then we plant trees, and we are wondering why is it that water systems around us do not have water, not knowing the things that we have planted as a way of seeing things that we are trying to mitigate climate change, not knowing actually we are contributing towards that. Yeah, so
Yes,
another
and
question I might ask is, since you have talked of the
yes.
need for us to understand properties of trees, is
Mhm.
it also important as climate change activists to also like invest knowledge in knowing about the various trees and how we can actually integrate them into our climate change activist journey, even as we approach the community? Or we should just pick any trees and just, because it's afforestation, just go about dropping every tree? How important is it that we also invest knowledge in knowing the specific kind of trees and the environments they are mostly
Yeah.
suited for, and the impact they have on the environment overall?
I would say very good question, and the answer is a definite yes. Provided you are a person that can read and write, it is very important to understand the different kinds of trees that you're dealing with, why even plant them, and how many to plant. The question you've asked me just reminds me of something that I think I'd love to share. So the other kind of tree that I'm trying to tell much more people to plant, especially people in farms, is a fig tree. And the main reason I'm trying to advocate for a fig tree, fig trees are not very common if you've noticed that. But the one good property about a fig tree is it helps keep water. So you find that wherever there's a fig tree, though you can easily find water there. But unfortunately, I don't know if a lot of even water drillers and Zambians know that. So as a climate change activist or as a conservative kind of person, it is very important to deliberately try to do focus on understanding different kinds of trees, how different trees behave in certain weather conditions, certain climate changes, and certain areas. That way, it also helps you in not only preserving the seed itself, but also on the health aspect. Previously, because I do handcrafts and I do a lot in wood and leather, there was a time when I was given a piece of trunk by somebody. Actually, I was given, but I paid some money for it. So one thing I do is when I get any piece of trunk, I first try to dechemicalize it. I soak it in water and vinegar just so if it has any poison and chemicals, especially if it's a trunk that was cut from a tree, I'm not certain of. So I got that trunk, but one thing I noticed was that the whole time I was handling it, once I was done, my eyes started swelling. And at first I couldn't figure. I thought maybe I touched some chemicals, but I realized I hadn't actually touched my eyes. So I then put the trunk away and I went to just try and get some air and I just rinsed my eyes with water. An hour later, my eyes went back. So I was really curious and keen to try and figure out what really made my eyes just swell. I went back to the tree trunk because it was a thing I'd actually had contact with. 30 minutes out within dealing with it, I noticed my eyes started swelling again. That's how I now called the person I got the trunk from and asked them what kind of a tree that was. I was then told it's a mulemu kind of tree, and that tree was just cut in the bush because they were at somebody's farm who told them to just clear the farm because they wanted to start growing stuff there. So they chopped off a couple of trees and they just told me, come and get something. So I told them, see, imagine if a child touched that tree and ended up getting swollen eyes and even been given medication just because the eyes were inflamed. So it is very important to know the trees. That way you know its properties, you know its potential poison in it, and how you can find a solution once you have the counter reaction based on the poison in that tree. Because some trees may be fruit trees, but the trunk of a tree is poisonous, even if it produces fruit. An example I can give is the mupundu tree. The bark of a mupundu tree has got those whitish stuff that comes out, just like an unripe mupundu. Once you rub your eyes in it, might be dangerous to your eyes. But once the fruit is ripe, it's a very good byproduct. So it helps us to kind of to be more careful, if that's the term, and just to be more aware. So I would say it's a very good idea for you to just do a research, especially when you're dealing with trees. That's where you know, okay, if we're going to plant these trees, what are the properties in this tree, and why should we plant it in relation to the environment, in relation to the to human health, and also in terms of future planning. What are some of the things that may result out of planting such a tree? Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. I don't know if anyone may have any questions before we ask Pauline to actually just wrap up and just give us a final word as we close in today's session. Is there anyone that might have a question? You can just unmute yourself. Okay.
Yes, I think the question as well.
Yes, Benjamin.
So I don't know, it could be in line with the question which Judith is from asking. I believe
Yes,
trees they grow at different rates, depending on their types and kinds. So in times like this where climate change is a crisis which requires an urgent action. So what kind of trees would you recommend those who are planting as a way to mitigate climate change? We don't want to be trapped in a situation where we plant trees which will take hundreds of years for them to grow actually at their maximum potential. So like for trees that grow quicker and so what kind of trees would you recommend those who want to plant trees as a way of mitigating climate change? And another question is on the fig tree that you're from talking about. I believe you talked about the importance of fig tree around the farm. You said one of it is because where the fig trees are, they're usually water nearby. Look, you said the ground water is close.
Yeah.
What influences the other? Is it the tree that influences the water, or is the water that influences the tree? Do the trees grow where water is? When you plant a tree, where it's planted, they're likely to be water there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for those questions. Are very, very good. I'll start with the first question on the kind of trees that would recommend for planting. That question is the question actually I asked myself in 2018 when my Outgrow a Scheme program just flopped. I thought myself, okay, I want to plant trees, but truth is some trees would take forever to grow, and I do not have forever to wait. So I then asked myself, I've heard of tree budding and grafting. What is that, and how can I just attain a certain variety of tree I'm looking for that can be able to give me a result at a shorter period, while it's helped me to make the environment better and also give me a byproduct. I then decided to say, I think with what I am looking for, I will lean on trees that are fruit trees and trees that give food. The main reason is with a fruit tree, you're going to get help with the soil, first of all, right? Secondly, you get a byproduct, which is food. And say, for example, you plant an orange tree or a lemon tree in a schoolyard, you are assured of each rainy season getting minimum 1,000 mangoes. So you are assured that if that tree is planted in the center of a school, 50 people at a given time, once the tree is 2 years old, would be able to get a shade at a given moment. That's just in a day. Secondly, at the end of that season, you'll be able to get fruits which can feed almost half a population or 3 clusters in a block. That is why I picked up on 5 fruit trees. The first one I started with was a lemon to graft into an orange, because I did that on three. I consider three things. First of all, I can be able to get, I can use the fruit itself as once I press them, or once I do any processing with them, it's easy for me to get vitamin C from there. I don't need to rely on chemicals for me to get my vitamin C. Secondly, I picked on an avocado tree. An avocado tree would give me good shade. I found a way of grafting a variety that can start flowering and even giving babies within a year. And those would give me a byproduct of an avocado itself that can be able to give me vitamin E oil, which is very rare to find. And it being a fruit that can give me good vitamin E, I was very excited about it. Then the third tree which is an indigenous tree, was the moringa. The moringa, we use the leaves, we use the roots, we use everything from the moringa. We can make moringa tea out of that. We can make moringa smoothie out of that. We can even use moringa oil from the seeds, which is a good tissue oil. Then the fourth tree I considered was the mango tree, and also try to graft different varieties of mangoes. Mangoes are good because they are, first of all, cheap. A lot of people eat them, and they also help us in reducing the hunger levels in the country. When the mango season comes, we can make porridge out of that. We eat the mango itself as a fruit. We even dry mangoes and eat them as dried fruit. The fourth, so hang on. So we have the orange, the lemon and the orange, the avocado, the moringa, the fourth is the mango. The fifth one was not really a fruit tree, but a tree that has potential healing properties and has aromatic properties in it. So this was the fennel tree, which I used the rootstock of the guava tree. I chose on the guava tree because the guava is one fruit which is underrated, especially in Africa. I think we take the hard pear, which is what is known in Southern America, as just a fruit we eat. But what we don't know is some of its property is that it's high in iron, which is very rare to find in a tree. The other thing that is high in iron when it comes to trees is a clove. But clove doesn't do very well in Africa, only in the Mediterranean countries and in India. So I found to say, okay, if they have clove, we have a guava tree. And what if we could actually use the rootstock of a guava and grow a fennel, which can give us 3 times that? So I would say try and focus on fruit trees and trees that would give you a shade, yes, while it's working on the soil, and also give you a byproduct of food. Especially the other thing to consider is the environmental effects on certain trees with certain seasons and weather conditions. Is it a tree that can easily survive in harsh conditions? Is it a tree that doesn't need a lot of watering and maintenance and pesticide? Because if a tree is going to need too much pesticide and you are trying to grow them for the good of the environment, it might not be a very good idea, because then you have to always look at it every change of a season. But if it's easy to grow, it's drought resistant, and even gives you good byproduct out of the tree, I'll say go for it. Both indigenous and fruit as well. So I hope that answers the first question, Benjamin.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay, so now to answer the second question, to say on the fig tree and water, is it the fig tree that attracts the water, or is it the water that attracts the fig tree? Honestly speaking, on that part, my honest opinion, I believe a fig tree easily keeps water and helps in storing water on the ground. And what I don't know is if it's attracted to where there's water, or it's because just its presence helps to keep the water in the ground, is where I'm not certain. But I once was in an area where they were uprooting a fig tree. And one thing we noticed was that its roots ran deep. And I think the fact that its roots run deep helps it just to be a good storer of water. And the other thing about it is that you can also use its bark as an anti-inflammatory. So when you have an inflammation, either due to eczema, psoriasis, or a rash, or even acne, it helps to just tighten your skin pores. I don't know if you guys have used a fig bark before. So it's good for that. So I think the properties of a tree itself help to attract and just store the water wherever the water is on the ground. I hope that answers the question, Benjamin. But a lot of research still needs to be done, especially to try and find out if it's either the water that attracts the fig or it's the fig that attracts the water. But from what I've noticed is that because its roots run so deep, it's able to trap the water and just keep the water even in its trunk. Because you find that even when you go on a fig tree and try and cut some pieces of its bark, you find that it easily has a high oxidation level, and you find that a lot of water is found in its trunk. So it's, I think, a good property that tree has. Yeah. Any questions? So in case there are no questions, allow me to wrap up because my battery percentage is now below 10% and it might go in flight mode once it reaches 5%. So my biggest advice to especially people who are climate change activists and conservationists rather, is as young people, we are well placed, if that is the term I'd use. We are well placed in society because we have easy access to information and knowledge. We need to take advantage of that and use it to try and find answers, especially in relation to finding and creating solutions for our future generations, especially that we have a big elephant in the room, which is climate change. We need to be conscious and cautious when it comes to how we deal with life itself and also just how we live life as a people. Because truth is, our parents' ways of doing things back then is something that we first of all have to fight. A lot of parents, older people still believe in cutting trees and not planting trees. And a lot of trees that are cut today are not trees that were intentionally planted, but rather trees that were growing themselves in the bush, and people come and cut them because, well, the tree is either impeding their structures or a tree can be used for charcoal burning. But as young people, we are well placed because now we know the effects that some of the practices have been doing in the past, and we're experiencing its effects. So, and since we have access to information and resources, let us try and live life differently. And let us be influencers by changing our lifestyle ourselves, because once you change your lifestyle, another person will see to say, oh, okay, you live differently. Like for me, I have a zero plastic policy in my home. Whenever I'm going shopping, I have a cloth tote bag I use. So even, and it's something that I've been practicing for a long time. So even when the banning of using of plastic came, I was very excited about it, which is still very hard to completely wipe out now.
Okay, I think Pauline has actually left the meeting. She talked over badly. But then thank you so much, everyone that joined. I'll also send a thank you And I hope as climate change activists, we have been able to actually join. And even my hope is, as we are inviting these people to come and speak on these platforms, it's to actually see mentees join in these sessions. I know the recording is there, but then it will be really hard for you to catch up, because maybe along the way, as you listen to the video, you might have a question, but then the presenter is not available. So let's encourage our team members to actually participate. So thank you so much, Safila, that actually joined, and I've seen you have been joining in all our activities. I'm really grateful. And thank you so much, Benjamin. And if you can actually just help reach out to mentors and mentees, if they can encourage each other, so that when the coaching sessions come, you just listen in. Our sessions are very simple. You don't need to take notes. You just need to listen and learn as you go on. And these are very important information as we'll even be going out there. You find that certain questions that the presenters will be answering are some of the things they will ask you. But then if you miss out on the session, how are you going to present yourself as a climate change activist? Even more important, let's see value in actually acquiring knowledge and not just getting a piece of paper, but acquiring knowledge and applying it. That is what will make us stand out, not our qualifications, but our ability to apply. So thank you very much, and you all have a blessed evening, and it's good night.
Good night.
Let me just end.